All right, this will be video 9 covering chapter 9 of the Spark book titled Aging the Wise Way. As always, we're going to go through an introduction, 3 points, and application. My first point is practical aging statistics. My second point is going to be, it's titled, It's Not Just the Body. And my third point is how we can restore this breakdown. So moving into a general introduction here, the book started off by mentioning that the author's mother practically walked everywhere she went, and that her level of physical activity was likely what kept her so sharp for so long. Then when she was 86, she tripped, she broke her hip, and this is really scary because generally around 80% of older men and women die within a year of breaking a hip due to the physical inactivity and mental decline. And then finally, when her body slowed down, her mind quickly followed. She stopped playing bridge, she started watching soap operas, and then a year after the original hip break, she fell and broke her other hip and died months later at the age of 88. So, jumping into point 1, the practical aging statistics. In 1900, life expectancy was generally around 47 years old, but then fast forward today, life expectancy is over 76. So when older folks die, the reason is more likely to be chronic disease than acute illness like it was back then. But then those who outlive these life expectancy odds face other daunting statistics, such as these. The average 75-year-old suffers from 3 chronic medical conditions and takes an average of 5 medical prescriptions, according to the CDC. And then among those, over 65 years old, most suffer from hypertension, more than 2/3 are overweight, and nearly 20% have diabetes. And if you get diabetes, that actually triples the chance of developing heart disease. So the 3 leading killers, especially as we've mentioned in class also, are cancer, heart disease, and stroke. So altogether, for that specific age group, they account for 61% of all deaths. So moving on to point number 2, just to put things in perspective, it's titled, It's Not Just the Body. The same things that kill the body kill the brain, says Mark Mattson, a neuroscientist on the National Institute of Aging. He goes on to say, I think the good news is that if we take it seriously, many of the same factors that can reduce our risk for cardiovascular disease and diabetes also reduce the risk for age-related neurodegenerative disorders. The measures we would take to guard against diabetes, for example, also balance insulin levels in the brain and store up neurons against metabolic stress. Running to lower our blood pressure and strengthen our heart also keeps the capillaries in the brain from collapsing. Lifting weights helps to prevent osteoporosis from devouring our bones and releases growth factors that make dendrites bloom. So, also stated by Dr. Mattson a little bit later in the book, he says that fundamentally cognitive decline and all neurodegenerative diseases stem from dysfunctional and dying neurons. It is a communication breakdown. So, with that being said, we jump into point number 3, which is how can we restore this breakdown? So, we've had the medical proof that exercise protects against 3 diseases for decades. Those 3 diseases, as mentioned in the first point. Yet according to the CDC, about 1/3 of the population, over 65, reports that they engage in no leisure time activity at all. So why is this? Some of the reasons might be self-efficacy, some of it might be fear of injury, or simply the health problems that naturally come along with aging. But however, simply implying that older populations don't have to become ultra-marathon runners to slow an incline in health is a huge plus. According to one of these studies mentioned back in the book, even a daily physical activity of walking for a weekly average of an hour and a half significantly saw greater upsides than being entirely sedentary. Now, as we move on to the application part, from the perspective of an aspiring strength conditioning coach, I think that it comes down to understanding the specificity of the individual, especially if they're a bit older. So understanding why it is that they're working out may very well change the programming and exercise prescription. So for example, if someone who's working out to slow the effects of osteoporosis will have a significantly different exercise prescription and likely intensity levels than compared to someone who is working out to prevent the development of a brain disease. So Thus, I can use what I know about exercise to get the science behind how exercise reduces cognitive deterioration, as well as physical and physiological atrophy of the body systems, in order to motivate my clients to keep active and to have a better quality of life.